Irashaimase! Hello and welcome to Fitaurus Kitchen. I'm your host, Chef Fitaurus. It's time once again for Shoot 'em Up Saturday, and on the menu for this Saturday, we have Bullet Soul Infinite Burst, a shoot 'em up from visual novel producer 5PB. What kind of taste will this burst have? Let's get cooking and find out! So, a quick little bit of history for Bullet Soul Infinite Burst. So, originally, Bullet Soul went released in 2001, developed by Tachyon, both, of course, Bullet Soul and Infinite Burst. 3 years later, we would get Bullet Soul Infinite Burst. So, what does Infinite Burst have in it? It's basically a 1.5 or a remix of the original Bullet Souls. It takes the DLC that was available for Bullet Souls and includes it on disc. I do apologize if I'm throwing in a plural there, it's not actually plural. What's interesting is the games were originally released in Japan in 2011 and 2014 respectively. In 2016, 5PB releases them as game-on-demand Xbox 360 titles in the Western territories. And it's interesting because these were almost stealth releases. I hadn't heard anything about them until I saw a tweet that it had barely come out. So it was definitely a great surprise to have these titles come out, and a little bit baffling as well. Why not try and publicize this a little bit more? I do realize that our wonderful little shoot 'em up community is a smaller niche market as is, but a lot of the other titles that have been coming to the West have been coming as Steam releases. So this one's a little surprising overall. It is a bare bones release. The only thing that's been translated, worked on, are a little bit of the menus and the achievements. That said, I think it's great that they went and released these titles in the West, as previously the only way to play them would be to import them. They were region free, so that was possible, but the costs were prohibitive if you were just a little bit curious in the title. So that's a huge plus. Another thing about them, though, is both the original Bullet Soul release has all the DLC included, so if you're looking for... you can't really go wrong with either title, but maybe the Infinite Burst might be the better way to go between the two. That said, let's jump into the game, shall we? We do have a couple modes available. So there's the Caravan mode, which was originally DLC for the first Bullet Soul. This is basically a couple minute time attack, just shooting for the best score you can with the particular fighters. There's also the remixed normal mode. So this one plays the same as the original Bullet Soul, which is just a little bit tweaks here and there. They went and redid the balancing of the scoring, as well as remixing the enemy patterns and the bullet patterns as well. And then we've got what this game introduces, the Burst mode, which is what we'll be playing today. So there are a total of 4 fighters we can choose. There's Yoon with her FA-98 Stinger. She's a laser type with, well, as you can see up there, it goes and includes their stats, both their attack and their move. So she is balanced between attack and movement speed. Then we've got Zenichi with his Red Hot Skull. More of a based on movement rather than attack, he's a shot type. Then we have Sidahal with his attack type, or rather heavier attack, slower movement. He's a lock-on type. And then Loop, the highest attacker with some good movement speed, a grapple type. Basically what that means there is her options are actually like fists, so they can reach out, smash, grab the enemies. It's definitely weird. But her fighter is named the Piece of Cake. That's definitely what we want to play today, a piece of cake. Presentation-wise, like a lot of 360 shoot-em-ups, we've got a 2.5D presentation. So everything is rendered in 3D polygons, and it does look nice, but things can get very busy on screen, especially with the burst mode and all the coins that end up dropping. So, initially, talking about some of the differences that are in existence, well, actually, let's get to a more important point about Bullet Souls in general. One of the core mechanics that Bullet Soul has is bullet cancel. And it's not a new mechanic to shoot 'em ups by any stretch of the imagination. But the way that the bullet canceling works in Bullet Soul is when you defeat an enemy, or with sub-bosses and stage bosses, when you destroy segments of them, the bullets that enemy has fired are cancelled. So rather than dodging bullet curtains, which is usually the point of a bullet hell title, we're mainly seeking the destruction of the enemies around us. And if we destroy them fast enough, we don't even have to bother with dodging at all. I have mixed feelings on that one, and I'll get to those later. But it does make for a more interesting experience, just focusing on destruction and less on dodging. So, some of the features that we have with the Infinite Burst mode on, well, Infinite Burst. In the normal mode of Bullet Souls, your weapons start out at a lower power level. You collect power-ups to, of course, power up your weapon. In Burst mode, you're always at full power, and as I've noted in the past, that's something I really enjoy, is not having to worry about that loss of power when you die. Another thing that changes from normal mode to burst mode is when you die. So rather than have lives, burst mode has a life bar present there on the left. It looks sort of like a Mega Man life bar, and you can take a number of hits based on the number of life you have in said bar. We also have the introduction of a burst mode, which, or rather not a, no, it is a burst mode. Basically a burst that you can activate once you've built up the meter itself. Basically greatly increasing your power. It does also cancel the bullets at the time of activation. And you can continue running in burst mode as long as you're collecting the special red burst coins that are dropped by destroyed enemies while in burst mode. As far as scoring mechanics are concerned, the coins are central to that. Each coin you pick up increases your coin rate, basically the value that each coin has. But if a coin happens to bounce off the bottom and reach the top of the screen, it will subtract from that coin rate. So if you're able to collect all the coins, you're talking huge bonuses, as well as the various bonuses the game will give you for collection. And then we also get the destruction bonuses. There's mystery bonuses. The game is big on score and bonuses. As far as scoring is concerned for normal mode, that was done through multiplier, where there's a multiplier meter that you build up throughout the course of the game through the destruction of the enemies. So one thing that does mean is normal mode isn't as busy with all these extra coins on screen, and having sometimes a less powerful weapon means you're not also filling the screen with your own shots in addition to the enemies. Less of a worry due to the bullet cancel, but every once in a while it's easy enough to lose yourself in the melee. So playing in burst mode, it is possible to refill our life meter ever so slowly with those R tokens that do drop from certain enemies. They are more common in the later stages, but of course the game does start to ramp up in difficulty. Alright, and now we find ourselves at the boss of Stage 2. So as I was noting, we do have a burst that's available for our particular fighters. It can get very annoying when they pick up those red coins though, as they'll have an explanation that they give out when they do that's repeated each time you grab the coin. Sometimes making for a sound loop that can just get a little bit overdone and maybe a little annoying. But what we have available in normal mode are more standard shoot 'em up style bombs. And I believe those are the main differences between the two modes. The scoring, the coins versus the multiplier, life bar versus actual lives, bombs, and power-ups for your weapons. So one thing I haven't mentioned, but I have been using, is there are technically two shooting modes. A rapid fire mode, and a normal shot mode. And generally rapid fire is what you want to go for, but for times you're looking to deal heavier damage, the normal shot mode can be just the thing. It also slows down your movement speed, making it easier to in those situations where you do have to dodge the bullet curtains. Alright, closing thoughts, plus flavors. So with my time with Bullet Soul Infinite Burst so far, I've had a lot of fun, and that's one of the things I think needs to be noted about this title. At least from my perspective, it's a really fun take on the bullet hell genre, as it were. It's with the way that the bullet cancel works, I think they were aiming for maybe something that was more accessible, approachable to a more casual shoot 'em up fan, rather than the hardcore Danmaku diehards. So it might possibly alienate those that are looking for a more difficult experience, but what's here, I think, is really fun and pleasant. It also has a great soundtrack, and there's two versions available in Infinite Burst. There's, of course, the original soundtrack, and then also an arranged version that was worked on by the legendary Jake Burt Kaufman, who, if you've watched some of my other videos, is one of my favorite modern video game composers. Well, I guess all video game composers could be considered modern. The various ships and their playstyles, as well as the character designs, are also a lot of fun. So really, plus flavors that I give the game, it all boils down to fun, at least for me. The couple minus flavors I could give the title, burst mode especially, I feel things just get too busy. With all the coins flying on the screen, our own shots, sometimes it's hard to go and tell what's even going on the screen underneath us. We're just shooting, seeking rampant destruction without even being aware of what it is we're shooting. And that's a little bit of a problem. And as I was noting, the bullet cancel mechanic could potentially make the title less appealing to hardcore fans of the bullet hell genre. But if you can get past that, I highly, highly recommend giving this title a look at, especially given its relatively low entry cost of $15 on the Xbox 360 Games on Demand. It's surprising that it was basically a stealth release but taking out the hassles of importing this title makes it a no-brainer in my mind. Although, if you're looking to pick up Infinite Souls, or rather Infinite Burst or Bullet Soul itself, I would recommend probably just going with only the one and likely just Bullet Souls if I were to actually throw out a recommendation. As always, I want to thank you so much for coming out and joining me today for Shoot 'em Up Saturday, and I look forward to seeing you again next week.